Rosehill Township Public Service Commission. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we'll call the roll. Kostick here. Kennedy.
Here.
Schmidtke.
Present, sir.
Stanko.
Here.
Biddle.
Here.
Nadu.
Here.
And Lenny Pedestris has an excused absence tonight. Next, we have a motion to entertain a motion, or I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Or.
You supported it?
Yep.
Are there any additions, deletions? If not, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Agenda is approved. Next, we have the minutes from two meetings. The February 13th, we'll take them one at a time. The February 13th, I'll move approval. Well, I can't. I wasn't here, so somebody.
Well, we don't have enough people to pass it. There's only 3 of us here today that were at that meeting
Oh, okay.
then, so we're going to have to put that one off.
All right. How about the March meeting?
I think we're okay on that one.
All right, so we'll receive the minutes of February 13th. Derek?
Just table them until the next meeting.
Well, yeah, I suppose. March 12th meeting then. And who will make a motion for that approval?
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes of the March meeting.
Support.
Moved and supported. I have one question, Ryan. You gave your report on the, on page 8 of the minutes, and it just refers to the, I think I have the answer, the 50-year-old sludge pump. The 50-year-old sludge pump. And later on in the minutes on page 8, it reflects that the sludge pump is being replaced. Is that correct? It's the same sludge pump you mentioned in the minutes?
Yes, that's on level 1. It's an original pump, which is how we transfer.
Oh, it's in the budget for
It's in the
replacement.
budget for
Good.
this year.
That's good.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Yep.
Okay,
You're right.
good. That's it. Thank you. With that, any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And the minutes are approved. Next, we have approval of bills and vouchers for the month of April 2024. Are there any questions? I'll make a motion to approve. Is there support? I'll support. Biddle supports. Any questions? If not, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And item number 7, a review of statement of revenues and expenditures for the last month of the last fiscal year for March. Receive and file those if there aren't any questions. Next item is the treasurer's report. Dave, you have any comments?
I'm not the treasurer of the commission.
What?
I'm not the treasurer of the commission.
Well, I know that.
Oh.
We only have one treasurer. Anyway, okay, so we have the treasurer's report. I'll make a motion for approval of receipt of the treasurer's report. Your support.
Support.
Any comments? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Treasurer's report is received as filed. Okay, that's all taken care of. With that, is any comment from the public? And then we'll turn to Ryan Walsh, our wastewater treatment plant manager, for his comments and update. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. All right. The sludge hauling is going to happen about a month later than it was expected. On 5/28, which is the day after Memorial Day, is when solids will be leaving our plant in the dumpsters. And the reason is our hauler, he had more work this year. So that's the reason it was supposed to be mid to late April, and it's looking like late May. So all next week he's going to be bringing in equipment, starting Monday actually. And operation wise at the plant, we're still okay. You know, the plant's operating okay. Even though our sludge storage is higher, but everything's okay still. So I just want to let you know that. And the ACO work is moving along. A new final clarifier, it's about 95% all complete right now. And next on the list is we're replacing the effluent line, which it connects the final clarifiers to the chlorine contact chamber. And that work is being held off an extra month until the sludge haulers are finished.
Oh.
And the reason is logistically, it wouldn't work with having to haul out the sludge there in the driveway in the back there with the dumpsters, because waste management has to be able to move them out, and that new final effluent line is right under there that they would need to, and that just is what it is, and that it's not a huge issue. So that's actually supposed to happen July 8th, so not for almost a month and a half in that. But we have until, at least another October of 2025, for all the ACO work. So it's not an issue. And we'll also be at low flows too, so that's good for all that work. I'll be working on our MCAP reconciliation here soon. And what that is our maintenance cap, which happens at the plant April 1st through March 31st of each year. Since now we're in the new year, I'll go over all the past expenses. So it'd be April 1st of 23 through March 31st of 24. And then I'll have month by month all the expenses at the plant. And then the way that works is Veolia is liable for $40,000, and then anything which is over that is billed back with no markup. And I'll have it all laid out month by month, what they all were, and then you can look them over and approve that. So,
Thank you.
that's about all I have right now at the plant.
Okay, any questions of anyone?
I got one. I take it the elevator's working beautifully?
Nope. No, been
I know
years
that.
now since not. Yeah, it's kind of just locked out. So, but it's not really an issue at the plant. We.
Well,
have
it could
a
end up being a safety problem.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Why is that, you think?
It could- Sooner or later, I think we're gonna have to look at replacing that or getting one that operates.
Because it's just there right now, with the cables and the car. It's just kind of, it's on the 5th floor just sitting there locked out. But, you are right, it's just not usable. So that's where that stands. But, maybe in the future,
In line with that, I assume that the state hasn't brought up the issue.
No, they haven't actually. Someone was supposed to come by and officially lock it out, and they never have. So
far as from the, like, the elevator
Yeah,
maintenance?
state inspector, never came. So, I mean, it's locked out. So,
Well, that's one item on our list then, whatever, on the manager's list.
maybe we can handle
Things
that.
To look at.
Yeah.
Didn't you guys review the necessity of it or something like that, and it was determined not to be necessary either
No, it's
from an
not.
operational standpoint or from a regulatory standpoint?
Nope. It's not. But,
Doesn't mean that it, we shouldn't eventually maybe address it, but it didn't seem like it was, from what I understand, it wasn't a regulatory compliance, it wasn't a compliance issue, correct?
nope. They were supposed to come back out, and they never did. So, that's kind of where it stands.
And we were able to get around it when you put the primary tanks and rebuilt them with going down the one
Exactly.
area.
There's a hoist way, and then each floor has panels that you can remove. So we've just been, every contractor that's been in there has been able to just move items up and down, and we would too. It's rare that we have to move items that are heavy from level 1. It's a rarity.
That wasn't really a freight elevator or anything like that, it was.
No, it was just a employee elevator for personnel. I think the weight limit is only 500 pounds, so it's not supposed to be used for, Yep.
Okay, Les, is that okay? You satisfied with that?
Oh, yeah, I know that,
Okay.
I know that it doesn't work. That's why I keep ribbing them.
Okay. With that, if there are no other questions, thank you, Ryan.
Yep. That's all I got. Thanks.
So then we have 3 action items. I'll let Township Manager, DPS Director start. Item A, televising and cleaning sanitary sewer system bid award.
Do you want to make a motion and then I'll go into the explanation?
I make a motion that we accept all 3 of those.
Oh, you mean, we're
I
going to
should
take
say,
them one at a time.
and we approve all 3 of those together. Because they've already been approved at the township level.
You mean all 3 action items?
Yes, A, B, and C.
So they were approved last night at the meeting because of the schedule?
They were approved at the board meeting last night because of the schedule, but all the approvals at the board meeting last night were contingent upon your approvals this evening.
Which is customary. It happens sometimes with our meeting following, our monthly meeting schedule following.
Especially because the second board meeting in May falls on Memorial Day, so that'll eventually be canceled. So the next time the board could have acted on these after your meeting would have been June 10th. And there's some, time.
We'll try to get through these quick, Les. I think for the record, we should go one at a time.
Okay,
All right, got a motion on the floor to approve. Derek?
Okay, the first one you're going to be reviewing tonight is to award a contract to Advanced Rehabilitation Technologies in a total bid amount of $1,322,314.05. And what this is for is the restarting of our 5-year cleaning and televising and inspecting of our sewer system program. This contract or this work was competitively bid. We received 3 different bids, one from ART, which is the one that's being recommended for award. Pipeline Management Company and National Power Rodding was the third. And ART was the lowest responsive bidder at 1.3 million, a little more than that. So this is a 5-year project. The 1.3 million is for the entire 5-year project. As was in our previous work that we did, we separate the community into 5 different sections, and they start in section 1, which I believe is on the north end, and then they work their way south through section 5, which would be in the 5th year. And that follows with our previous schedule. So section 1 was done 5 years ago, so we start that one to keep on the 5-year schedule, which is required by the state of Michigan for us to evaluate our sewer system and keep up with our asset management plan. So this is in compliance with the state regulations and has been budgeted for within our 2024-2025 budget for next year's work or this fiscal year's work. and is being recommended by our engineers to proceed with.
Good, thanks for that explanation. In case anybody's watching that is interested, so we not only clean all the sewer lines, we go in and TV inspect it, pull a TV camera through the lines, and any obstruction or failure is dealt with immediately. If there's a failure in the line, rather than have sewage back up, a contractor will come in and we know how many feet it is from a manhole, and we'll go in and repair it.
Yep.
So this is a 5-year program, as Derek mentioned, and it's a $1.3 million award, but the first year we'll spend $254,000 based on the number of linear feet of pipe. So with that, are there any other questions?
Yes.
Ray?
So Safeway was the previous supplier for this?
Correct.
Okay. They chose not to bid, or were you not happy with their work, or?
They did not bid. Yep. This was publicly advertised, available, in all the traditional locations, trade publications. Raines has a complete list of different construction, advertisement venues that they use that are traditionally visited by contractors that do this type of work, and it was put in all those locations. So I'm not sure why they didn't submit a bid, but they did not submit a bid.
Okay. Any other questions? Phil?
Well, yeah, just one general question. I've forgotten what our last 5-year contract amount was. Do you recall that, Derek?
Significantly less. I think it was
$700,000?
It's about $150,000 a year. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is significantly more. The bids were quite far apart. I mean, one was almost 3.5 times, and the other was over double. Raines is definitely comfortable with this?
Yeah. Matter of fact, good question. Same question came up at the board meeting last night. This company has a great reputation. They've done a lot of work in this area. Raines is very familiar with them. They also checked all their references, as they do with any bid recommendations. And they're very comfortable with their, that they can complete the work, and their bid is solid, that they can do it for that price.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? If not, all in favor of approval of the contract for $1,322,314.05 for the purpose of cleaning, televising, and inspecting all sanitary sewer pipes in the township over the next 5 years, for 2024 to 2029, 1/5 of the township a year, be awarded to Advanced Rehabilitation Technology. That's the motion.
Or
Supported it. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Contract is awarded. Item number 2 on the agenda is potholing lead service lines bid award. That's a good new word for me, potholing. Derek and John, probably.
Somebody want to make the motion, and I'll go to
I'll make a
explain.
motion that we approve the award of a contract to Duke's Root Control Company for the lead service line inventory as required by the state of Michigan.
And John, feel free to chime in anytime you want, because you're equally involved in this and have a substantial amount of background. But in basic terms, the state of Michigan, through the revised lead and copper standards and the changes to the state of Michigan's drinking water requirements from 2018, all water systems are required to inventory their lead service lines by October of 2024, with the intent or the requirement being placed on us that any of those that are identified have to be replaced by a certain date and time as well. So part of that is reviewing the records that we have about what lead service lines exist in the community. So a records review is part of it, but then part of that those requirements are also to go into the field and physically inspect these locations to confirm whether these services are lead or not. So the most common method for that is to, once you've identified those locations, to go out with a Vector truck and daylight these lead service lines or these suspected lead service lines to confirm their material composition. So we actually went to the state and applied for a grant to do that required work. We did receive a grant totaling $19,300, and the project cost is $21,850 for 50 homes at a cost of $437 per location. So if the state accepts our proposed list of locations, which is about 50, we will only have about $2,500 in expense. There is the potential that that could increase, depending upon if the state comes back and says, hey, we're not happy with your physical records. If they're not happy with our physical records, which we're basing our number of 50 off of, they could potentially request us to sample more locations, and that would be kind of in a random format, which is as is stipulated in the legislation. So, John, do you have anything to add to that at all?
If you just wanted to explain to them what the potholing actually means.
Yeah. So a Vector truck, I think you're all familiar with what a Vector truck is. Yeah. It's like a massive, shop vac, but on a truck chassis. So it's got a big nozzle like your shop vac does, but just think of the nozzle being that big around. They apply water to the ground at the approximate location of that lead service line or that supposed lead service line. They spray water and use that Vector nozzle to basically pothole or suck out the dirt going down to that line. So it's not very intrusive, because it only clears the dirt in a spot, the size of the suction nozzle. They use that to excavate down to that line and inspect its material composition, and then they backfill it, and then they're out of that area. So that is why it's the preferred method. We're working in and around private residences because these are service lines, and we want to minimize the restoration. We want to minimize the impact. It's a lot better than going in with an excavator and physically finding this line, and it's also safer. You start going in there with equipment and you start ripping lines out, and you start getting into a bigger problem with having to replace the line right then and there, no matter what it was. So that's the method that they're utilizing, and the method that was bid.
So to determine the locations, it's based on history, your experience with
Correct.
water
So
main
it's
repair,
actually, it's based on the water tap sheets when the house was originally built. And so everything in our files is copper unless otherwise noted. So the 50 we have come between all the notes on the tap sheets, and from our wonderful commissioner, Mr. Schmickey, also gave us an updated list as of this evening that we're going to follow up on that one as well. But we're quite confident in that. And like Derek had noted, if the state doesn't accept it, then we're going to have to go by their standard, which comes up to around 300 pothole.
So they go off a percentage of the total service lines if they don't accept your records as evidence. So what they say is to get an adequate representation, they have you do a random sample of up to 300 residences throughout the community. Is that accurate, John?
Correct.
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
and then the goal eventually is to replace those lines?
Correct.
3% per year by 2040,
What year?
2040.
3% per
Per
year.
year minimum. You can do them all of them immediately first year if you have the money.
Water department fund,
Correct.
our water fund would have to shoulder that expense?
Correct. Or, well, there are grants available as well. Derek's been checking.
The unfortunate part is a lot of the grants are for disadvantaged communities that are not in a good financial position.
Sure.
So we will obviously look for those to see if we qualify, as we did with this work here. We looked to see if we qualified, and we did, and we're going to receive some funds from the state to do this work. But yeah, we'll research those and see if we can get assistance. We will.
It'd be $150,000 more.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that in the last 2 weeks, nationally, in Congress, there's been discussion about, or some legislation proposed, to fund on a national level, and it might again be geared toward bigger cities and so forth, lead replacement.
Yeah, because the state of Michigan for quite some time, ever since Flint, has actually had a more stringent lead standard than even the EPA has nationwide. But they've started to merge those now. I mean, as far as the limits or the levels, I think the EPA is looking at following the state of Michigan's guidelines, or maybe not the state of Michigan's guidelines or closer to the state of Michigan's guidelines. So, this is maybe in the onset was a Michigan issue. Now this is a national issue, where a lot of other states are going to have to deal with this issue as well.
Okay,
How many service lines do we suspect we have?
46.
There's
probably a lot less than it. I'm guessing 16 to 20, because we have done some replacements, and some of the ones that I've gone out to verify that it says lead on the tap sheet, I've gone in the house, it's not, it's copper. So that was never updated throughout the years.
Okay.
Some of those are from late 30s to early 40s. So, and again, we're basing our number on the tap sheets, which was the original installation, and 43 years worth of experience in his days with the DPS.
most of the, another way to tell what the line is, go in the house and look and see what's coming through the floor. It could be a piece of copper like John says. And it could be, 9 times out of 10, my experience is with all the houses that I went in and changed and repaired meters, a piece of lead comes up and then that's where the meter yoke was at.
So and that is a requirement. We have to, so like Derek said, we have to daylight the line at the shutoff at the street is where we're going to start. We're going to do each side of the shutoff. So that tells you what the type of pipe is from the water main to the shutoff that typically the community would own. And then also on the other side of that shutoff, what type of pipe is going toward the house, and then verification inside the house as well. So it's a 3-point verification.
Because there is no authorization or permission to replace only partial lines. They want to make sure they know that we've replaced everything that could potentially be lead.
The requirement actually states 18 inches inside the house is where we have to go to.
So we as a municipality, all municipalities are struggling a little bit with the replacement aspect because you're physically going into somebody's crawl space, somebody's basement, and replacing a water line that's coming up into their basement, into their home. So there's some interaction with the private resident while you're doing this, and restoration and things of that sort. So John and I have been talking and we'll continue to talk about agreements with the residents, how to address liabilities, to make sure that there's necessary permissions and whatnot. So, it's a fairly complicated process. That's why the state has provided, the amount of time that they have to get this thing, taken care of. So. This bid is actually really good though. Just as a side note, $437 is kind of unheard of. Once again, Rains has checked the references. They've been doing this work all over the place, but even other competitive bids in neighboring communities, those contracts are in the $550 range, the low bids. So we were very pleased with this price.
okay. Any other comments from you, Les?
No, I mean, majority of the lead lines are in the houses that were built during the Second World War. And there was only one house, like in my subdivision, Kelsey sub, there was only one house in that whole subdivision that was built during the war, had a copper line in it.
Oh.
And that was mine. And I found out why, because the government was recalling all the copper, and the contractor that was going to put it in says, I'll be damned if I'm going to sell it back to the government for less than what I paid for it. So when Dallas Kelsey Sr. told him he was building this model, he says in a couple of weeks, and Leonard said, tomorrow it'll be put in. And that's how I ended up with a 1-inch copper water line.
Okay. Any other comments, questions from anybody? Can I have support for the motion?
I'll support.
Biddle supports. And if there are no other questions, all in favor of awarding to Duke's Root Control a contract in the base amount of $21,850 to cover 50 units approximately for work to uncover areas where we suspect there are lead water lines. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Dust control. Oh, I'll make a motion to award a contract for, to D&D Emulsions for 2 applications of dust control material for the 24-25 budget year at an estimated cost of approximately $95,000.
I will second that.
Staff?
This action item is very familiar, I think, to the commission. If you recall, we did calcium chloride a couple of years ago. Last year, we kind of bantered about and debated 2 applications of dust bond and ultimately settled on that. I think we found it to be very effective last year. So when we put together the 2024-2025 budget, we did budget for 2 applications of dust bond. We have been in communication with the vendor, and they can be here next Monday. And that is basically the timeline we used last year, the schedule we used last year, 3rd week in May, and then the 2nd week here, 3rd week in July, to space them out about 2 months apart, because that's the most effective and gets us through the majority of the dust season. So they held their price from last year. It will more than likely come in less than $95,000. $95,000 is what we budgeted and spent last year. But now that we paved Park Lane, there's about 3,200 feet of road that won't have to have that application this year. So we should save some money on that. But that was the budgeted number, so that's what we put in the action item.
Okay. And that worked out pretty well, right, as far as I remember. And I saw Bob Zelinski on the, at the township board meeting last night, so.
Yeah, and
He was happy.
you want to give a lot of credit to John because he coordinates with Wayne County to make sure that the roads get graded. So when they put the dust control down, it's done on a road that is in the best condition that it can be in. And then also he personally drives around with the dust bond applicator to make sure that it gets put on all the roads and that we get a good result out of the application. So he does a great job with that and kind of hand holds them through the whole process to make sure that everything's taken care of. So
Our John you're talking about,
our John, yes.
God, thank you, John.
otherwise known as Dusty Keim.
Thanks, Bill.
Here comes the smoke.
All right, so we have a motion to approve. Is there support?
I'll support.
The motion again is to award to D&D Emulsions for 2 applications of gravel road dust control at a total cost not to exceed $95,000. So with that, any other questions? If not, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Yes, thank you. Next is Dusty Keim.
Oh, it's actually Derek, isn't it? Oh, it's me? Oh, that was the action I suppose. Derek's supposed to go first, but I will if you want.
Okay,
Okay, so from the maintenance department, our spring hydrant flushing continues north to south. So be aware of that for doing your laundry during the day. If you get some tainted, or not tainted, excuse me, some discolored water, don't do your laundry till we're clear of your area or the water comes from your faucets clear. We've also been working diligently on the lead service line verification process. So we've gone out and located all of the shutoffs so we can expedite the program when the contractor arrives. So is there, it's marked, ready to go. That's where he's going to start backing. So that's been quite a process. Wayne County will be grading the roads beginning tomorrow and hope to be done by Friday. So if the residents could please not park on the roadway while they're out there grading, it's going to help you in the long run and keep the dust down in front of your house. And like Derek said, the dust application will happen beginning on Monday morning and should be done by late Tuesday. Also, water main break restorations will begin next week. It's been a very wet spring, so it's hard to get in and not make a bigger mess than we're trying to clean up. So that's why it's been delayed. But we're hoping to get that beginning next week.
is that it?
That's all, sir.
Thank you. I guess I did get ahead of myself. on
Well, that's
the
okay.
agenda. So now, back to you, Derek. You have 3 items, the water loss report, the road work report, and project update, so go ahead.
Yeah, the water loss report was included in the packet. It's slightly lower than last month, but that's mostly because there were some months that were shaved off the back end. We took, I think, probably dates before September 21st and reduced that by about 6 months because we actually had exceeded the page size here. So 17.918% is the running average from September of 21 through March of 24. John, do you have anything to add about water loss at all? I mean, obviously, we're doing hydrant flushing right
Right,
now.
and so when that program finishes, then we'll use that as, take that off the lost water total.
Okay.
Because that's accounted for water, and also the sewer cleaning, we're doing the same thing as well. So
Okay.
that should reduce that number.
Okay. Any questions about any of that?
Any breakthrough on the litigation with Toby?
So we're currently going through depositions right now. That's where we're at in that process. Matter of fact, we have deps tomorrow, all day tomorrow. Our attorney is deposing employees of the company that the township is involved in a suit with. So we've gone through basically evidence gathering, and we probably will have depositions, I would assume, wrapped up in the next 30 to 60 days. And then, obviously, we'll continue through the process. We haven't been or received any kind of settlement, offer or anything like that. So it's just following its process. So
But that water loss is in this
correct,
report.
correct. The event happened in April of 2023, so that would have impacted water loss in that month.
All right, thank you.
Yep. The next I have on here is the DPS roadwork update. So I have a map for the overhead that kind of gives a summary of the different locations that we're working. Red is yellow is concrete. Pink is asphalt work that's occurring. If you recall, the original scope of work was Ferry Road, from the limits of where they're going to be doing the bridge project, all the way to the intersection of East River Road. We had budgeted for this fiscal year $1 million for that work. Those bids came in significantly lower than we had anticipated in the budget. We had $1 million budgeted, and it came in at about $500,000. So I believe we spoke with the DPS Commission, and then we went to the Township Board, and the Township Board and the DPS Commission, through the DPS Commission's recommendation, went ahead and authorized a change order to add back in, or add to the contract $500,000, the remainder of the balance of work that we had budgeted. And not the work that we budgeted, but the budgeted funds that we had. And we wanted to take advantage of that because we had such a good price with the bid that we had received to try to get some things done. So we reviewed the island for some areas that needed milling and filling, were good candidates. Problem areas that we were aware of from over the years, and then also prioritize residential roads where we know Wayne County is never going to come and address those. That wouldn't be done unless the township stepped in and worked on those. So for working from north to south, the cul-de-sac at Park Lane is receiving a mill and resurface. The intersection of Byramar and West River Road. The western portion of Lakewood at West River Road, back about 300 or 400 feet. About 300 or 400 feet of both Island and Stout, where coming down to the road was in pretty poor shape. Obviously, all of Ferry up to the bridge, at least on the east side, not the west side.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but when
Yes.
you say island,
Yes,
you should say Island Boulevard
Yes.
or Island Drive.
Yeah.
Because that really gets confusing.
correct. Yeah, because there are two islands, obviously, right? One on the east and one on the west. So, Island Drive, Ferry on the east side of Meridian, like we'd already talked about. The asphalt section of Lowry at Meridian, So that was pretty torn up. I think it probably only hurt things when they had the Meridian Road project. There was additional traffic there, construction traffic was there. So we milled that and resurfaced that. Sections of Haley Crescent that were in poor condition right at the intersection of Meridian, and then also back right near the intersection of Graves. Halcyon Court, not all the way back, but the far eastern portion of it. Sections of Loma Circle, right where that new house was built. There was some areas there that were in poor shape. Bellevue Road, right at the intersection of West River Road, was a mill and resurface. And that was the scope of the additional asphalt work that we did. And that was all fit in right about at the budget that was authorized. So a fair amount of problem areas got resolved because we received a real solid bid on Ferry Road and were able to spread the money, as you can see, pretty much across the island. So with regards to concrete, we had about 124,000, I think, in last year's contract. We're going to be above that a little bit with the locations that have been highlighted here, but we have the funds available, and we're not significantly above the 124,000. I think we were at 160 that we're spending. It might get a little bit more than that because as we start doing concrete work, it has a tendency to spread and people become aware of it and point out problem areas to us. So GV was holding their price from last year, so we've got some really good pricing on our concrete. So we want to try to take advantage of that good pricing and pinpoint some areas and take care of them. And we've been doing that. A couple of locations, HCL Jackson Court, Macy Court, some additional work on Canterbury that wasn't done last year. Cadillac Circle, which was supposed to be done last year, but we didn't get to because there's a house being built pretty much at that location. There was some work on Grays Drive as well, that right around a catch basin that needed to be done that we had planned on doing last year, but it had to wait until this year because they ran out of time. Some small sectioning work on Macomb. There was in the center turn lane on the right-hand side, there was a joint that was bad there, so we replaced that or are replacing that. We had a number of complaints from Siding Court, and these are complaints that go back 10 years about conditions in that cul-de-sac, concrete sections that were in bad condition, and then some on Woodside. So there were probably, I don't know, 7, 8 locations that were doing concrete work, and that was, well, like I said, the balance of that GV contract. So that's the road work and where we're currently at with that. The base course on most of the asphalt roads were completed today, and then I'm assuming they hope to complete the final course, final lift tomorrow or Wednesday, weather dependent. So after,
Actually, just got a text before the meeting that said that they're gonna continue on with base on West River.
okay,
And then top after that.
okay, all right. So hopefully be wrapped up by the end of this week, I would assume, with the asphalt work. Concrete work is a little bit more lengthy time-wise. They have to saw cut, which they've done the majority of that at all the locations, pull that out, and then in some of these areas, because it's a full width on the road, they have to do halves, so that'll probably be a while before they complete that work, so.
Well, my compliments to you and John for working with the contractor and coming up with these locations spread from north to south. It shows we're giving a lot of thought to what we're doing, and I appreciate that. And the good thing is, as we go into next fall, we'll know what all these dollars turned out to be and what our budget's going to be for next year.
Correct.
And we'll have time to discuss what our plan is going to be by the end of this winter, before winter flies, the end of this year, and then plan for early bid, whatever work we're going to do for 2025. So we'll have a better handle on the money then.
Yeah, the beauty of the road millage and you know, thanks to the commission for, you know, being part of, you know, the establishment of it and the design of it is after the original bond, or after the annual bond payments were resolved, taken care of, there's still money available each year to do road work, above and beyond just the initial work that we did with the initial infusion of capital that we had. So it will be a continual, conversation each year, what roads we're going to be working on. And even with this work, we still have money in the bank that we haven't spent, that it won't just be the annual amount we get above and beyond the bond payments, but we still have, I want to say it's going to be close to a little less than $1 million in the bank once all this work is completed from that original bond amount as well. So,
Can you give me an update on the two bridges that I know we're looking at the county fixing? One is Elba, I don't know where you are with that, and the other is the Ferry Road Bridge.
yeah, so Elba, we've been working with the county about our water main conflict over there. We were recently told, I think probably about 2-3 weeks ago, that they might be delaying Elba Island until next year. They were supposed to be working on it already, but my understanding is they have some funding issues with it. As far as Ferry Road goes, my understanding is they're going to be doing that late summer, early fall this year. And I think that still stands. So those were the two original ones. Swan Island was always supposed to be a couple of years out. I think that's still the plan with that. I want to say it was 2025 they were talking about doing that. And that's still the plan as far as we know. I think the county is trying to find the money for Elba.
The Zoom meeting next week, I don't know if you saw that today.
Yeah. I did not, but if there is, I'm sure that's
The
going
Ohio
to
schedule.
be part of the conversation. So,
For
On
the
Elba?
Elba Bridge, correct.
yeah.
And just so you know, since all the work was started, last week I had a contact from a resident that suggested that they saw the other work being done and said that there are some problems on Elba Drive.
Yeah, and we had talked about Elba, and that will be something I think for subsequent years. Elba and also Stout could probably use a resurfacing, but those things that we can talk about. But I think we stayed away a little bit from Elba because we knew that the bridge was going to be replaced, and a lot of the areas that need to be milled and filled either lead up to that bridge or lead off that bridge. So I would say almost the whole stretch of Elba could use a resurface all the way from the bridge all the way to the private portion of the island. So that's something we'll have to look at maybe for subsequent years.
Okay.
I don't know if we want to talk a little bit about drainage while I'm up here, but the township has been working with its contractor, Detroit Great All, on some drainage work this year, as was budgeted. They've done some work along
Rucker Road.
Rucker Road. I can never remember which one's farther north. Rucker, because we were having a lot of open space water coming into yards. So there was a ditch that existed there that was refreshed by the contractor leading to the west. So that's resolved that issue. And then we had some issues over in Hawthorne. The Frenchman's Creek drainage runs across a large portion of the island, down across Meridian, and then eventually back out here to Frenchman's Creek and then out to the river. At various portions of the Frenchman's Creek drainage, which if you've been on the commission, as a number of you have for a while, it needs pretty regular maintenance, and we've had various issues throughout the years with that Frenchman's Creek drainage because it drains such a large area. If there's any kind of impediment to the drainage flow, it backs the whole system up. So a portion of that runs through Hawthorne and back behind the Meridian School, and then out towards the creek. So our contractor's in there right now cleaning that area out because they were experiencing some issues in Hawthorne with part of that system backing up into yards. So our contractor's in there doing work right now. And then where are they headed to after that, John, do you know?
Subdivision, probably in the Lakewood area, Jewel Colony.
Yeah. So we have these.
That's what he's doing currently is all with a track machine. So once he gets all the track machine work completed, then we go into the subdivisions and do the road ditches.
So when we have a list of these various drainage issues, I got another one I need to go over with you, but all previously existing drainage is just a lot of it hasn't been maintained in forever. A lot of it were, they were drainage systems that were part of the old farms here, hadn't been touched since there aren't farms here any longer, as the last time they worked on them was back then. and they were incorporated into the neighborhood drainage. And so they need to be refreshed, need to be maintained to make sure that the drainage system works. And we've had a lot of success over the years with doing that, with very positive results.
Absolutely.
I had a call today about the one on that affects Hawthorne. They were very pleased with the work that's being done, but reminded me also that they still have that problem at the end of James Court, where I said that I would go up there with John and the property owners and talk about it in the next week or so. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yep.
That catch basin just doesn't drain.
Any questions about the roads or any of the other stuff? Yes.
The only thing I was gonna say is, Frenchman's Creek, as it comes out of Hawthorne, and it goes through and under Loma Circle twice. I don't think anything's ever been done down there.
Mhm.
And that's kind of like a blockage where, sure, they got all this water coming this way, but it can't get out.
Yeah. A lot of that area floods into the open space woods that are there when it exceeds the capacity, I think. So we probably haven't gotten as many complaints about that because the areas that are impacted are open space, but you're exactly right. I mean, it all, flows downstream, and if there's any kind of blockage, it causes, issues upstream.
Because there's
So-
all kinds of trees and stuff growing in the ditch line that went through there.
Right. Well, that's something we can take a look
We've
at.
been watching it, Les. It is getting a little bit overgrown, but that pipe is such large capacity, that water's flying through there. I mean, I got a picture of it, I'll show you after the meeting of where he came through today on Hawthorne, and it's just a river just gushing to the south. So it's making its way there. He began behind the school today, or last week, behind the school, behind Hawthorne, actually closer to the soccer fields where he began. Opened that all up, so it's flowing like a river down through there.
Yeah, there was a
And
bottleneck.
now he's working north back toward behind Hawthorne through James and Nathan out to Meridian. When he gets done there, that water's just gonna fly.
There was a pretty good bottleneck there too. There was probably a 12-inch pipe that he just went ahead and removed because that was getting clogged up pretty often with material. So he just open ditched that in order to make sure there wasn't any kind of issue down the road where, regular maintenance would have to be necessary. This should be pretty maintenance free now.
Oh, good.
Yep.
That's a good thing, right?
Yeah. Yep. Phil.
Any update on the Park Lane Bridge? Is that even on the radar?
We pretty consistently try to work with the county to see what options exist, but haven't had a whole lot of success with that. So no, I do not have an update at this point.
So they don't have that on the list to replace it? They're just going to leave it
No,
closed?
they don't have, they haven't earmarked any money for it. They haven't identified a funding source. We would like to talk to them about maybe some partnership or something, but, we've been trying with them to see what options exist. I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Yep. And Park Lane is another one that, that road conditions could use a resurfacing as well. So before and after the bridge, it's just, if there's any possibility of that bridge reopening and being reconstructed, you'd want to do that work after I think that work was completed. So we kind of stayed away from that again this year as well.
The area you're talking about is between Horse Mill and the
Correct.
bridge.
Horse Mill and Bridge, and even Horse Mill and the bridge, and then even from the bridge up to Bridge. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, thank you for this
Yep.
report. It's very good to see all this work. So, any other comments? Okay, you're still on, Derek, with engineer's report.
Yeah, I'll try to go through this kind of quick because we've covered a number of these things this evening. For the sanitary sewers, we had talked about that earlier. That bid was officially awarded with your approval tonight. So we'll have the engineers get the contracts out to the vendor and get moving on, bringing them into the fold and doing work for us. Manholes and sewer rehabilitation, we're utilizing the federal earmark that we received, that $3.5 million for that work. So unfortunately, as I've mentioned in previous meetings, there's a lot of hoops that we have to jump through to utilize that money. So Raines has been working with the EPA, which is the federal agency that's managing that grant with us, to make sure that we're in compliance with the scope, the federal requirements like SHPO and Davis-Bacon, And then, once they've received all the clearances that are necessary, and all the information built into the bid document that the contractor is going to have to take into consideration when they place their bid, the federal requirements, they'll put that out and get that moving. And basically what that is, that asset management plan we've been working so hard on, we're planning on using $2.5 million of that federal earmark to do sanitary sewer rehab throughout the community with those dollars. So that's the game plan that was budgeted for this year, to use that money for that purpose. And that'll be like relining of sewer lines, underground sewer lines, based upon that, as the chairman had mentioned earlier, the inspection, the identification of faults that were in emergencies, but were, condition assessments that said, hey, this is, needs to be worked on over a period of time. That list will be utilized to schedule this work and prioritize this work. The lab unit is another one we're using the federal dollars for. I think we're pretty much at the conclusion of the EPA federal requirements for that. They have ordered the equipment, so that's in process, so we're just waiting on its delivery. But there were a couple of the federal, guidelines that we had to pay attention to, like the Buy American provision, which required the vendor to do a little bit of shopping for some of the equipment to make sure it was built in America, and then also some EPA energy requirements, where the grant or the earmark required us to take into consideration energy savings to a certain level on the new unit as compared to the old unit. So Raines has been navigating those requirements with the contractor to make sure that we're in compliance, and that's coming to a conclusion. So work on that should happen here fairly shortly once the equipment is delivered. Ryan had spoke to us earlier about the ACO work, which is this basis of design plan improvements, and everything's going well over there. With regards to the ACO project, the clarifier is 95% completed, and I think it's, Ryan had mentioned the effluent pipe, the area that they have to work where the sludge hauling is for that portion is on hold until that sludge hauling work is complete. The state through Eagle requires us to submit an annual report on our asset management report or asset management plan. That was completed before the deadline of May 1st. The water asset management plan is currently in progress. That's probably 50% done or so, as well as our reliability study, which is required by the state. We talked earlier about the various pavement projects that we have going on. Ferry Road is pretty much complete with the exception of markings and shoulder restoration. And we talked about where we're at with this additional locations earlier, as well as the street sectioning where we're at with that. So that pretty much concludes the project status report. Are there any questions about any other projects going on or things we haven't addressed here?
Two questions. On the sanitary sewer, you have met with contractor and discussed unlocated manholes and pipes and remaining work. What was the results of that discussion? I mean, and how much distance and length are we talking about here?
It's not overly significant in the grand scheme of how many structures that we have. So there are some unlocatable manholes that either were on prints or we couldn't find in the field. Ultimately, what will happen is they'll submit that to Eagle, and Eagle will say whether that's okay that you could or you could not find those. So we'll wait on a response from them to see if that's acceptable or not. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, but the current contractor is going to be responsible for
Correct.
doing that.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And responded to Eagle's violation notice. What was that about?
We had a discharge earlier this year. So we had to respond to their, notice of.
Tell them why and what.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Are there other questions? Okay. Thank you, Derek.
With that concludes my report. Thank you.
Let's go around the table, see if there are any comments from commissioners. Dave, any other comments?
Nope.
Linda?
I just get a lot of feedback about how impressed everybody is with the road work that we've done. The residents on Ferry are extremely happy.
Good.
They got their road, and they'll be really happy to hear about the bridge. So, guys been doing a great job.
Thank you.
Philip?
I just wanted to give another attaboy to the contractors that finished up the work on the water leak down at the end of Swan Island Drive. They totally remediated the property. There were several bushes and that had been planted there that got moved, but they were replanted, and it just looks like it did before. I mean, everything was done very professionally and satisfactorily to the neighbor, and just want to thank John and the contractors that were involved.
Thanks, Bill.
Hey,
Nothing?
Les,
Nothing tonight?
thank you. I have two comments. I want to, again, thank everybody, Phil in particular, and staff for carrying on well in my absence. Appreciate that. And nice to know I wasn't missed. So anyway, things have moved forward. And to staff, thanks for pushing all these projects. You know, coming back after being gone for a while and driving the roads now compared to what we used to experience 2 or 3 years ago, big difference, right, Ray?
Big difference.
I couldn't go in the hardware store years ago without having a discussion with the owner about the condition of the roads and why we weren't doing anything. Now, I want to say this. I think that in spite of the delay, Wayne County did a good job on that Meridian Bridge. I saw people working out there today on maybe the overpass, the pedestrian overpass. I'm not
No,
sure.
it was sealing the concrete on the bridge.
They did a nice job. It turned out great. And the pavement looks good all the way. The traffic light looks all the way up to Island. It looks really nice. So I wanted to say that I've been one of the Wayne County critics over the years, so good job there. Any word on what they might do continuing Meridian?
We understand it's on their plan, but they haven't been able to give us an exact date. I had heard maybe July. My understanding is they're doing it in-house. They had bought some equipment that they were having some problems with, so it's delayed their whole, I guess, road resurfacing project list for the summertime. So I think with that delay, they were looking, like I said, estimated in July.
So our hope, and I know you've been pushing them, our hope is that to get all the way to church.
I believe they're going to go all the way to Bridge.
Oh, that'd be terrific. Yeah, that'd be terrific. Anyway, we've been making progress, so thank you for all that. And then finally, I'm looking at John now. I come off onto West River, off the county bridge, and make the ramp turn, and dead ahead of me, where it dead ends, I saw there's been some work to remediate the negative-looking stuff that was at the end of that dead end. You know what I'm talking about, right, Phil? And how did that come about? I know I've been
Your request.
talking about
Your
it.
request was fulfilled.
So you tore that fence down.
No, we left the fence.
You tore something down that looked pretty bad in there, and you cut some. Did you use your new equipment to go
We
in?
did, yes, sir. Cleared that whole lot with it.
And now you have a bunch of stumps sticking up, right?
A few.
But it looks so much
You can
better.
see the
You know
river
what
now.
I'm talking about to me, the pollution's gone. It looks better. You can see the water now. So, that leads to a question. I know that you had trouble last year hiring summer help.
Correct.
I know you have a couple open positions, right?
One, currently.
Been able to fill it?
Well, we have one filled. We had 2 positions, and one of them's filled. We're currently looking for another 18-year-old or older, preferably college student or high school graduate to come assist us.
Good luck. I mean, I know the burden of the water department has increased with what we expect. Their hope that you can get done, so.
Thank you, Bill.
Anyway, it looks good. We're making improvements. So those are my comments, and I want to thank everybody for taking care of things. And if there are no more comments, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:04.
Okay, moved, supported. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.